Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting No Goldfish Here, and I'm going to be sipping on my vanilla chai tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, ultramarine blue, Mars black, burnt umber, which I'll call brown, fire red, deep yellow, and burnt sienna, which I'll call rust. And of course you can certainly switch up those colors if you'd like to, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have some fun tools. I have just a plain 9-inch paper plate that I'll be using to draw a circle later. I've got for my tools, I've got a white piece of chalk for drawing. I have 3 brushes, a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, a number 6 round synthetic brush, and a number 1 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up as well. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the fancy paper plate and all the good stuff in between. So that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting our background. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm using are blue and black and white. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to make myself a really dark blue color to go along the edges, and then I'm going to get it lighter and lighter as it comes into the middle of the canvas. I'll have it really light over here and in the middle, and then just a hint of darkness around the edges. So I'm going to take my large bristle brush. I'm going to take just a tiny bit of black paint and mix it in with some of my blue. You could do all of your blue if you wanted to. We're not going to be utilizing too much of the bright blue for future steps, but that's totally your call as to how much you're going to want to do with the dark blue. And the blue will get a little darker as it dries, so just as you're mixing it, just plan for that. And then once you've got the desired shade, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my large bristle brush, just making sure I've got it all mixed here, and I'm going to be painting along the left edge of the canvas. So you may find that after you get this done, the first layer, that you might want to do a second layer on it. That's going to be totally up to you as to how smooth you want it to look, but I'm just getting mine to go light or dark on the left, and then I'm just going to transition into a lighter shade. So the next time I picked up my paint, I picked up that dark blue plus white on my brush, and I'm going to be doing just this left to right kind of crisscross type of motion to get them to blend in together. But you might find that you want to do circles or dots, whatever you want to get these colors to blend in together. I most likely will do a second coat on mine. I again just picked up the blue plus some white on my brush just to get these two colors to start to blend in together. And then I'll probably just pick up white for the remainder of this interior area or of the background. So that way it becomes really nice and light as it gets in towards that center where my fish is going to be and where my cat is going to be. So I just picked up just white paint and I'm just working myself into that interior of what's going to be the fishbowl or the other side of the wall. And I'm going to do the same thing over in through here. And again, I'm just kind of using a left to right crisscrossy type of motion. If you wanted yours to look much more blended than mine, you could certainly just kind of keep lightly going over it as it's drying. That will sometimes help you to get the colors to blend in a little bit. Or like I said, you could certainly do another layer on top of this, which I might opt to do. I'm pretty sure what I'll do is I'm going to get this on here and then let it dry for a minute so I can visually see if it became light enough or if it's too dark or if it blended enough for me, because I know that these colors do transition quite a bit as they dry. So I just always plan for that and always know that I might feel that I want to do some tweaking once that it dries. So I leave the option open for myself. And then once you've got this all nice and done, what we're going to do for the next step is use our piece of chalk. So I'm going to just kind of keep fiddling with this. I will let mine probably dry for a minute, see if I want to do a second coat on it. This is looking pretty good though. I like the darkness on the edges. It seems like it's transitioning nice into my center. And then I will take this large brush, put it away wherever I want to, take out my chalk, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're drawing an outline for our cat. I'm going to be using my chalk and my paper plate. You could really use any drawing utensil you want. I just like to use the chalk because it's easy to erase if I want to make corrections. You could use a pencil too if you'd like to. But I do want to forewarn you that before we start this step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you can take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of, fun fanning method to dry it off with. Or you can do as I did and just whip out your blow dryer and get it dry that way. So whatever method works best for you, that would be great. So how I'm going to do this is I'm using my paper plate, which I've clearly used before. You can reuse these as many times as you want to. And I am going to be putting mine I would say about a third of the way down my canvas, somewhere around here. And it's about, I would say, the farthest area here is maybe about 7 inches out. So you're going to want to have a couple of inches hanging over in that direction in through there. So let me just get mine lined up where I want it to. And then I'm going to take my piece of chalk and I'm going to draw an outline around it. So just take that chalk, draw an outline around it, and I might, for viewing purposes, and just see if you're going to be able to see this, I might change my color of my chalk so you guys can see it better. Yeah, I think I'm gonna use a different color chalk so you guys can see it a little bit better on camera here, but of course you can just utilize your white chalk. So I'm just drawing an outline around my paper plate. Something like that. So I've got a circle. Obviously I had some wet paint somewhere along the line. So now that I've got that, I can, discard my paper plate tool wherever I'd like to. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom of my canvas. I'm going to come in about 2 inches, give myself a little bit of a marker. I'm going to come a little to the left of that, maybe about another 1/2 inch or an inch. Come straight up to that circle, and I'm going to connect these two. This is going to be like the neck of the cat in through there. And then what I'm going to do is from the center-ish of this circle, I'm going to come out about 1 inch, give myself a little marker. What we're going to do here is we are going to be making the separating part from, this will be where the mouth or the muzzle kind of part of the cat is, and then this is the side of the face. So I came about halfway up my circle, came out about 1 inch, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of connect this to the side of the face in through here, and then I'm going to gradually connect this to the top of the head. So this is going to go something like this. So this just gives us the side of that face that pops out a little bit more. Now I'm going to do a couple of ears. So I'm going to come down the top right hand corner, maybe about an inch, and then I'm going to come in from the side of my canvas, maybe about 2 inches, and this will be my right ear, so something like this. And then I'm going to give myself one on the left. So you're going to come, let's see, if this is about halfway into your canvas, I have mine a little bit to the right and down, maybe about 1.5 inches. This is the tip of the ear. And then you can come down this circle-y area, I would say about 3 or 4 inches. This will give you into this vicinity. And then you're going to come about halfway between here and here. That's going to be the bottom part of the ear. So somewhere about here. So then I'm just going to connect these. I don't want a super pointy tip to the ear, so I will round it a little bit around that little tip area. And then I'm going to connect this with this. And I never like to do super straight lines. I'm always going to have a little bit of a wiggle in them, so that way it gives it some movement. And then on this side, I'm going to have the ear kind of coming in a little bit like this, and then I drop it down. Maybe it's got that little skin piece by the edge of the head, and then something like this. And that's all I'm going to be doing for my outline of the ear. You can certainly sit and tweak yours all that you want, and then we're going to be using our large brush for the next step. So you can just put your chalk away, get out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the base coat for our cat. I'm going to be using my large brush, and I'm going to be using burnt sienna. So I'm just going to be using this as the base coat for the cat, because my cat is a really kind of an orangey type of color. So this is going to work as a great base for that. I'm not doing anything really super special when it comes to painting it in. I am, other than consciously kind of thinking about the direction that the fur is going to go. So there's areas like the ear where I'm going to have some direction to the exterior fur, but the interior of the ear really doesn't have a whole bunch of fur within it, so I don't necessarily need to do anything perfect there. The fur on the face I am going to do with a dotting or a stippling type of technique, because I want this fur to look nice and textured, and I don't want to have to deal with the fighting with brush stroke marks as I'm doing the cat fur, because I want a lot of this main color to be the main color of the cat. I'm not going to be hiding a lot of it, so I want to get the textural look to start right off of the bat, and I don't want to have to necessarily fight with, you know, too many streaks or anything along that line. So I'm really just going to be adding this base coat on the face part with this stippling type of technique. So it's not a terribly difficult technique. You could certainly do it with other brush strokes, but for me, if I know that I'm going to be utilizing this color a lot within the painting of that cat and having a lot of it show, I definitely, you know, want it to have that textured look to it. So that's why I'm doing this type of stippling technique, and this will give me a very consistent and uniform type of look over the whole thing, and it really adds to that fluffiness and that softness of the fur. So these are great types of brushes to start soft fur with when you want it to have a really low or short look to it, but still have some texture and softness to it. And then the neck, I'm gonna give that with I'm gonna go down with my brush stroke. So this is going to give you the illusion of a little bit longer fur. And it's not always necessary to use this directional brush stroke on the first layer of fur, but again, because I know that I'm going to be utilizing this color a lot in the overall appearance of it, I'm just starting the process by using this directional brush stroke. And then we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this first layer of your fur on here, you can put your large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're doing the first layer of our fish. I'm gonna be using my small brush. I'm gonna be using just rust paint. So how I'm gonna do this is I'm going to imagine where I want this fish to be so he looks like he's kind of looking at the cat and he's within the boundaries of where I'm gonna have my fishbowl. So my fishbowl is gonna be somewhere, the edge is gonna be somewhere around here. My eyes of my cat are gonna be in this vicinity. So I'm gonna have my fish similar in height to my eyes, maybe a little bit higher. So I'm going to put rust paint on my brush and I'm going to figure out kind of, if I'm going to have my eyes in through here, I'm going to come to the left of my head about 3 inches and I'm going to go up just a little bit. So my marker is right about here. If this is about halfway down my canvas, I'm a little bit higher than that. And then I'm going to go to the left of that, maybe about 3 or 4 inches and up just a tiny bit more than here. This is going to represent the back end of the fish. And I did these a little bit crooked like this so it naturally will put the fish at a little bit of an angle so it looks like it's looking at the cat. And then I'm just going to connect these 2 markers with the hump of the back of the little fish. He's got a little bit of a nose in through there and then just a little hump to the back, something like that. And of course your fish does not have to be exactly the same shape as mine, like that. And then I'll do the underside of it. I'm going to put a little snout kind of part on the front, just a little bumpy part so it almost looks like there's a little mouth or something in through there, and then just kind of give myself a little round part down at the bottom. So that'll be the bottom part of the fish. I'm just going to color this in with my burnt sienna rust color. And of course you can model your fish after whatever style fish that you would like. Maybe you have betta fish or you have some cool, saltwater tropical fish in your tank that you want to model this after. I'm just modeling mine after a kind of a generic goldfish here. I'm not going to put a fin on the top of the back because that's going to be occupied by a shark fin. So I'm not going to put the actual one, but I am going to put one coming out to the end of the body in through here. So these are like butterfly kind of goldfish where they have these just these really fluffy, translucent, transparent type of fins. So I think I'm going to have, this one is going to have one kind of in the center of the body down in through here, pretty long, and then I'm just kind of curling these edges up like that. I'll have one coming, that was a little too much paint on my brush, one coming out in through here. Maybe this one looks like he's swimming a little bit more, maybe it's a little more curved, something like that. Then maybe I'll have a little tiny one coming out the front. And then I think I'm going to have another little one back in through here that's going to be behind the shark fin, like that. And then we are going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your first layer of your goldfish on here, you can put your small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the first layer to our eyes, nose, and mouth. So our feline facial features. I did it on the first shot. So you try and say it 3 times fast, but I just did it once. So feline facial features, feline facial features, feline facial features. Challenge you on that one. All right, I'm using my medium brush. I'm using just brown paint. So I am going to load my brush up with brown paint. And really what I'm going to be doing, I've already kind of marked mine out and I'll tell you where I have the marks, but I'm attempting to make some ovals with a little bit pointy edges. This one the right one might be a little bit wider because we're seeing the face at a little bit of an angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come about halfway up or down my circle. So here's my original circle. I'm about halfway. You might be a little bit lower than that halfway point. And if this is the middle of my area, somewhere in through here, I would say. I've got two markers about an inch to the right and the left of that, or between your two ears if you come down. That'll give you a good place to kind of give yourself guidance so you don't have those inner corners too close or too far away from each other. And then I'm going about an inch from either side and making myself a little bit of a mark. That's going to be the inside corner of the eyes. This one on the right hand side, the outside corner of the eye is going to be right about here. So I'm about a half or a quarter of an inch away from the edge of my canvas. And from here, I'm up maybe about an inch and a half to 2 inches, and you just go straight over. And then I'm just going to connect these two. When I connect them, I'm going to come up a little bit in my arcing motion above where the height of that is. So I'm going to bring that up just a little bit, and then I'm just kind of curving it down to this corner in through here. And then when I connect these two over here, I'm going to give it a little bit of an arcing motion, but it doesn't have to be a huge arcing motion. And of course, you can certainly modify your shape to look like the shape of your cat, whatever works well for you. And of course, we have lots more work to go on this, so don't feel that we are totally done at this point. So that's going to be that one. And then on this one, my other marking is the other corner of the eye I have right about here. So for me, this is almost lined up with the bottom of the skin of the ear. But if you were to kind of measure it to the other one, it's a little bit lower than where we had that one. So if you come down just a little bit and all the way to the left, I would say you're about an inch and a half from here and up. So somewhere in this vicinity is where I have this one. And then of course I'm going to do my round kind of shape to it, and it doesn't have to be exactly as the right one. Again, we're going to be seeing this from an angle, so it would, this left eye would look a little bit different than the right eye, so you can certainly play with that. I think I need this a little bit rounder at the top, something like this, just to give me good perspective on it. And of course, you can keep tweaking yours once you've got them on here. Just know that we're going to be doing a lot more information around them. This is just going to get the party started. So I've got that in through there. And again, it's to the side, so it's going to look a little bit skewed, but I feel like I need this to go a little bit higher up in through here to make it look like it works with that one. So I'm just bringing this up a little bit higher. Yeah, because I want it to look like it feels like it's of a similar size. And then the bottom of it, I think I want the bottom of it to come down a little bit further as well. So you want them to feel, again, like they could represent the same kind of size or the same cat. And again, we can certainly tweak them a little bit later, but this is how I'm going to start mine. And this, again, we're seeing this from the angle, so it's definitely a little bit different of a shape than that one. And then for the nose, we're really just going to put the crease from the nose to the mouth and a couple of nostrils. So you're going to go about halfway between these two guys and come down maybe about 2.5 to 3 inches, saving yourself some room for the bottom. So it's a little bit less than half the way from here to here, a little bit shy of that. So I'm going to make myself a diagonal line, not very diagonal, just a little diagonal like this. And then once I get to here, I'm going to kick this out. This is going to be the mouth area like that. And then I'm going to kick this one out to the right hand side. This one doesn't have to go all the way down to where your circle was. I'm going to bring this a little bit higher up. This is actually going to separate the side of the face from the neck area as well. And then I'm going to put a couple of little nostrils on here. So I'm going to go just to the right of here, maybe about, I would say, 3/4 of an inch or so. Give myself a little kind of curved line like that, and then do the same thing over on the left hand side. Just give myself a little tiny curved little marker, something like that. And then we are going to be using our large brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your medium brush away wherever you'd like to. Take out your large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're adding the shadow areas on our cat's head. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are predominantly brown, but I'll probably use a little bit of rust as well as maybe a touch of black too. So the areas I'm going to be doing are the inside of the ears. I'm going to do some shadowy areas along the side of the nose, and then a little bit down in through here to tell you where the difference between the head and the neck are. So I'm going to start with just some brown paint on my bristle brush, and I'm going to put a little bit down in through here to give you a darker area underneath what's going to be the face area. And I'm going to pick up now a little bit of my rust just to get this to blend in a little bit. You don't really need to do a whole heck of a lot. We're just giving it a little bit of a darker fur underneath that neck, so it looks like the head pops out a little bit more. I'm going to do the same thing along the edges of the nose. So I'm going to be I'm just picking up a little bit more brown paint. I know that my edge of my nose is going to be in through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just taking a little bit of this brown, not too much. I'm going to wipe it off with my paper towel. I felt like I had a little bit too much in through there. And I'm just going to kind of tap it along the edge of where that nose is, and I can bring a little bit up in through here as well. So what this is doing is it's going to tell the viewer that this part of the face kind of dips down right next to the nose. I'm going to put a little bit underneath here as well, so that way it's going to underneath where we put the pinky part on the nose, it'll give us a little bit of a shadow underneath there as well. I can put a little bit in that mouth area. I didn't say I was going to do this, but I'm doing it just so I don't have such a firm line on my mouth itself. I'm going to put a tiny bit on this left-hand side because I know that this left-hand side is going to look a little bit more illuminated with whatever the light is that we're going to be using, so I don't need as much on this side. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit in the ears. I think I did put brown with a tiny bit of black paint on my brush because I want the little shadow in the ears to be pretty darn dark. So the head is right in through here. So I'm going to put my shadowy area near the edge of the ear, but you don't have to put it all the way to the edge. So I'm just kind of rubbing it in along the next to the edge, and then I'm going to just pull it into the main section of the ear itself. We'll put a little bit more of what I'm going to call like a skin color on there in a minute, but right now I want it to look like this goes down deep into the head. So I'm just giving a little bit of extra darkness in through there, and then I'll go ahead and do the same thing. Well, actually, I think I want a little bit right in through here too. Just add that little bit of extra shadow in through there. On the right hand side, I'm going to do this more coming over in the right hand side of it to emulate what was happening on that left ear. So you want to do something similar, but of course we're not seeing the whole ear on this side, so we just need a little bit in through there, and then maybe a tiny touch of it in through here just to emulate what we did on the other ear. And then we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the cat fur. We're not doing whiskers or those little details yet, but we're going to finish the main area of the cat fur. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm using are brown, rust, yellow, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-mix myself a couple of different shades of the fur so I can have this very textured looking fur here. So the rust is going to obviously be my base coat, but I want my cat to look like it's on kind of the yellower side. So I am going to be pre-mixing myself two colors. I'm going to use this brush to paint, but to demonstrate my color mixing, I'm going to use my medium brush. So I have this color right in through here. And what this is it's just my rust with a little bit of white. I'm going to be utilizing this for the interior kind of skin color of the ears, as well as maybe a little bit of accent around the eyes and stuff. So I'll use that color. And then this color right here is, I'm not even going to wash my brush because it's rust, white, and yellow. So I've got yellow, a little bit of rust, a little bit of white, oh, and a little bit of brown too. So this is just going to give me what I'll refer to as like my blonde color for the hair, so, or for the fur. And of course you can adjust this to be whatever you want yours to be. If you want yours to be a darker tone or a lighter tone, it's totally up to you. Maybe you want your cat to be really on the browner side and you want to steer it more in that direction. It's totally up to you. But this is, for me, is going to be a light version to add that fluff and those highlights on there. So this is looking pretty good to me. And then that's all I'm going to do for my color mixing. So we'll call this my blonde color, and then we'll call this my skin color. Those are my official names for it. And then I'm going to put this brush away, take out my bristle brush. And really what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a little bit of that pink color or that skin color and give myself an interior for my ears. So I know, because I have this rust color underneath, that it will in fact take on some of that color as it dries. So I really don't need much, but I do want to allow there to be some sort of transitional kind of skin color inside that ear. So that's where I'm going with that. And you could get yours to be lighter or darker. I'm also, while I've got this on my brush, going to put a little bit around the eyes. I know that I'm going to also be putting some fur and some other information around those eyes, but this just gives me just a little bit of extra information that will help through the process to make it look a little bit more realistic. Same thing with the nose. So I just have that little bit of that skin color. I know my nose is going to have more skin color on it, so I'm just kind of rubbing a little bit on there just to get that started. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start picking up my fur colors. So of course I have my rust as my fur color, but I want the top of my head to be more on that yellowy side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start from the bottom and work my way up. In through my mouth, I'm going to have that more of like, or like the little cheekies here, I'm going to have that more of like white or tan kind of color. And then more yellow as I go up to the top. So I didn't wash my brush. I still have some of this color on here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that yellowy color plus a touch of white. I'm not using a lot of paint on my brush at any one time. And I'm just going to kind of use the little tips of my brush to give myself this evidence of some fur coming out underneath the cat's chin in through there. So that's all I'm going to do for the chest. I don't really need to do a whole heck of a lot. So I'm going to move my way up. In the face, I'm going to be using more of a dotting type of technique. In through the mouth and the cheeks, I'm going to pick up a little bit. I'm probably never going to wash my brush unless I have too much paint on it and need to release some of it. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of brown and a tiny bit of white. This is going to give me my little bit of a light color around that mouth area, and I'm going to be dotting this in. So I'm using this as like a stippling kind of effect, and I'm just kind of getting this little bit of fluff going on around the mouth, near the nose. And you don't just have to use this one color. You can certainly, as you go through this process, if you want it to be a little bit brighter or a little bit darker, especially when you're, maybe it's a little bit darker underneath the mouth, and then maybe you get it to be a little bit lighter around the edge. So maybe I pick up a tiny bit more white on my brush. As it gets closer to the edge of the face, maybe I put a little bit more white on it. Or maybe I put a little bit more white over down in through here. I'm leaving my mouth so you can clearly see it, but you don't have to leave it as a full-on straight line. You can get some of these little pieces of fur to just kind of fluff over the edges of it. And then I'm going to maybe put a little bit more lightness as it's coming right towards the nose in through here, and this will look better once we put the nose on too. So right now it's going to look a little funny with without the nose fully on there, but you'll be able to see it once we add the detail on the nose. And then I'm going to start adding more of that yellowy golden kind of color, blonde type of color onto my brush. And again, I don't need much. So for the most part on the face, I'm going to be using this dotting type of effect. But if I want there to be any direction of that fur, like when I get towards that eye, maybe I start pulling it down a little bit and kind of pulling that brush to tell the viewer that the fur might be turning a little bit or has a little bit of length onto it. But really for the most part, I'm going to be on the face using this dotting type of effect. And you could, if your cat that you're looking to emulate has specific markings, you could certainly add, you know, like dark stripes or different types of areas that are going to dictate what your particular cat's markings are, if you want to emulate that. And as I'm going up this face, I'm really just using that blonde color right now to get this main I would say layer of fur on, and once I've got it kind of into that value or the color that I want to make it look like it's nice and fluffy, then I'll come back and add maybe a bit more of a highlight on the top of the nose and stuff like that. Right now I'm still just picking up that blonde kind of color and working my way up this head in through here, just kind of doing this little bit of a dotting. I think I'm going to add or leave a little bit of darkness in through here, just to maybe there's a little bit of a dark stripe of sorts in through there. So you can leave this rust color wherever you want. If you want there to be a little bit of a darker area, you can certainly just kind of leave that in through there. So again, I've just got that blonde color on here, giving myself a little bit of fluff in through here. I'm going to put some on the in through the ears. So the ears to me would have a little bit longer fur. So I'm going to just kind of pull the corner and give it these little wispy type of colors in through it, or type of fur dotting along the edge of the ear. I'm going to put a little bit brighter of a highlight in a minute, but right now I'm just kind of getting all the fluff on here. You can even extend it past the edge of where you had the outline for it. That will definitely give you a little bit more dimension to it. Going to get this to cross over in front of the ear part a little bit. And again, I'm going to add a bit of a highlight in a second to get this to all connect and look really nice and vibrant. But right now, just kind of adding that fur on there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start making sure this looks like it works over here too. I'm going to start using white with that blonde color. So the blonde color plus some white, this is going to give me more of that evident dimension to the cat's face. And I can just kind of say, all right, well, I got my light is kind of over on this side. I'm going to add some beautiful brightness to the top of the nose. Maybe I've got a couple of little long pieces up in through here. So this is where, when I say don't use a lot of paint, this is definitely one of those steps where you don't need a lot of paint. You kind of want it to dry on the fly for you so you can keep building these little areas. Maybe I want some little kind of eyelashy things coming over here. We're going to get more detail on the cat's eyes in a few minutes, but right now I'm just kind of adding these light areas where I want them to appear just with the corner of my brush. Maybe there's some little kind of cute longer pieces underneath this eye. And by not using a lot of paint on my brush, what I'm allowed to do, or what I'm able to do, is just kind of keep building these layers. And when I build them, maybe I want there to be a dark spot there that represents a little marking to my cat. So you can really have fun with getting the whole cat to be as light or as dark as you want, based on your own personal preference of a cute cat color. So I'm going to give these little areas around the eyes. I always like to add extra details around the eyes. They always make me feel like the more information that you have, the more natural that they're going to look. So you can certainly have fun with that. I'm going to add some more around those ears, maybe maybe coming up in through the top of the head. I'm just putting my head back a little bit so I can see where I want this to go. Maybe this top of the head is going to have a little bit of lightness, but not go too light. Maybe we'll leave a couple of dark streaks in through there. And you can utilize that interior pink color too if you wanted to just give it a little bit more more diversity in the colors, I guess. I'm going to pick up a little bit more white here, give myself some little pieces, brighter pieces coming and crossing over the corner of the ear here. And again, I'm just using the corner of my brush to give me these really individual type of pieces of fur, but you could certainly use a smaller brush. I like to use these bristle brushes because it gives me a lot of good dimension in my fur creations, but you can certainly find whatever style of brush works best for you. I need to do some little ones coming out this ear over here. So I think I want a little white edge to my ear too to give this a little bit more information. So this ear, I guess, could come a little bit in the head too. So something like that. Give myself some little pieces of fur coming in through this ear as well. And again, don't use it. You don't need a lot of paint on that brush. Just the corner of your brush will totally work. And if you come to a point where you're like, oh my God, I did too much, just give it a second, let it dry. You can always come back and add more on top of it. You can add lighter or darker. You can, you know, really have fun with the values of it all. I'm going to add a little bit more up on the top of this ear in through here. And again, if you wanted it more yellow, you can, I just picked up straight yellow and white on my brush. So you can certainly get it to be a little bit more yellow if you wanted to. You can, you know, play with it all you want. I want a little extra fluff over here on the edge of this ear. And when you're doing stuff like the fluff on the ear, the edge, you don't have to bring it all the way to the edge. You can leave that little a little bit of that darkness around the edge. That's going to make it look like it's got, you know, spots that dip in, spots that are, you know, towards the exterior, or they have volume to them. So just playing with those kind of things and not overdoing it, which is very hard to not do. It's easy to overdo it, but just kind of controlling how much paint you put on your brush and just approaching it in a slow way. That's what's going to give you the most natural effect. You don't always have to have a ton of paint on your brush. You don't always have to go for it and make it fully rendered on that first go around. You can just simply kind of keep building it and working it to your own visual preference. But know that, you know, again, when it dries, it is going to look different when it dries. So wait to cast your full judgment upon it until it's dry. You know, let it dry, and then if you feel like you need to do anything more, feel free to do so. But, you know, just know that it's got that gestation kind of period to coming to its final resting point and getting it as bright or as, you know, all the information in there that you wanted to. And then I would just kind of keep fiddling with this. I'll probably let mine dry and see if I want to do any more fiddling with it. I might work on this mouth area a little bit more. I'm feeling like I need a little bit more volume in through here, or maybe a little more fur over here. And I would just kind of keep playing with it. I think I need a little bit more over on this right hand side, just to make sure that all the colors kind of talk to each other, making sure that this chin kind of talks, or, you know, you can tell that it's going over the other area in through here. And we do have whiskers and stuff that we're going to put on, and of course a nose and some eyes, so that'll make it look much more natural as well. And then we are going to be utilizing we're going to use our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your fur all nice and fluffed out and you've made it as exciting or as subtle as you want it to be, you can take out your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing our cat eyes. So I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, blue, white, and maybe some yellow. So how I'm going to do this, and if I use any other colors, I'll let you know, but those are the colors in my head right now. So how I'm going to do this, I'm starting with some black paint on my small brush, and really I'm going to kind of outline my eyeballs. So I'm going to, on this right hand side, and you could go right next to, you know, where they currently are, or you can shift it a little bit, whatever is going to make you feel comfortable. I'm going to bring it pretty near the edge over on the top and the bottom, but then when it comes into the inside corner of the the inside corner of the eye, that's when I'm going to kind of just round it off in through here. And then, of course, I'm going to bring this up. These are very wide open eyes of a seemingly young, curious cat, in my opinion. So I'm just kind of bringing this around here. It does not have to be a firm, you know, solid, clean line. You just want something that's going to kind of outline that eye. I'm going to bring a little bit of that black in through here. This will just act as that little cute like inside corner of the eye, and then I'm just going to kind of get this to blend a little bit into the actual eye itself, so there's not too clean of a line. This is just going to give me that nice exterior type of shadow dippy area. I'm going to put my eyeball in, or my the pupil in place, so I'm going to go kind of in the center of the eye and maybe up towards the top a little bit. I'm just going to give myself kind of a slender curved type of line, something like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and repeat that step over here on the left hand side. I just felt my hand go through some wet paint, so we might have wet paint somewhere in an area that were unexpected in a moment. And then over here, same thing. I'm going to leave a little bit of that crease to the corner of the eye, bringing this black outline around the edges, and then getting it to just kind of fade in a little bit with the interior of the eye. So it's again not a solid line, but something that is soft as it goes into the eye itself. And then if I have room or feel like you could be able to see a little bit of this darkness in the corner, you can just add that. I'm going to add my little pupil, so I want it to look like it's making sense with the other one, so I'm going to put it in a pretty similar spot on the eye, trying to give it in a pretty similar type of appearance, so something like that. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just wiping my brush off on my paper towel. I'm picking up some of my brown paint, and I'm going to dot up at the top of my eye and kind of around my pupil a little bit with the brown paint, because I want it to look like there's a lot of dimension in this eye, so I'm just making sure that I've got that extra kind of darkness in through there. The corners where we want them to be a little bit darker later are pretty good right now. So then I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm picking up my background blue, so that navy blue plus a little bit of white on my brush, and I'm going to start this like stippling type of color application into the eye. I really want this to look, you know, like a nice dusty type of blue color. So by doing this dotting type of technique, this is going to give me all those little speckles within the eye. I want my eye to be the brightest towards the bottom and towards the exterior, but it will get darker as it goes towards the real edges of that eye. So as I'm doing this, I'm really not thinking, oh my God, this has got to be perfect at this point. I'm really just looking for it to gently be a little bit more dominant or brighter in the main portion of the eye, and then just kind of fade off into the exterior edges. So again, the navy blue and white, I'm going to come to this eye. I'm going to get it to be a little bit brighter in a minute, but right now I'm just kind of getting this initial coat on here so I can get it to be very iridescent and have a lot of different colors within it. So I just picked up a little bit more blue so I can get this to fade off into this darker exterior area. So just kind of getting this on here. You could have put the pupil on later. That's going to be a personal preference on your part if you wanted to add that now or later, but I'm just getting this blue to be represented throughout the entire eye with that darkness up at the top. Right now I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow and white because I want there to be some yellow greenish white kind of specklies near the pupil and through here. So I picked up yellow and white, and I'm getting there to be this beautiful extra bit of information around the pupil of the eye. And these, I mean, cats have all different kinds of colored eyes, so you can, you know, imagine yours to be whatever you want, but just know that they have so much information in them with all the little color variations. So if yours turns out a different color than mine or a different, you know, look to it than mine, just roll with it, you know, step away from the canvas, see if it looks pretty to you or is exciting enough to you, and if it is, then that's it. You know, you've accomplished, you know, making it look like an eye. It doesn't have to be the same exact colors as mine. And then once I've got that on there, then I think I'm just going to kind of make sure that I have the rest of the eye as light as I want. So I'm just adding a bit more of maybe the white with a little bit of blue on my brush. You could even, here's another side note, you could even take some of your blue and your yellow and mix it together for like almost a teal type of color. So if you wanted to explore putting different colors in the eye, you could certainly do something along that line. Totally up to you. It's just a, you know, one of those things that if you did want to explore different colors in the eye, you can certainly do that. So I think I've got white with, you know, blue, yellow, white, a whole bunch of colors on my brush. And I'm just going to kind of keep speckling this until I feel that mine is as light and as informative as I want it to be. I'm bringing this lightness pretty far down towards the bottom, but I'm maintaining this type of stippling brush stroke so I can have tons of information in the eye. I definitely am attempting to keep the top portion of the eye a little bit darker, because to me the top portion seems to always have a little bit of shadow at the top of the eyeball where the eyelid shades it, and then in the corners of the eye I'm going to keep that a little bit darker. I'm going to move to the other eye just to make sure that I've got this as light as I want it before I add the twinkle or the reflection or the highlight on top of it. I want to make sure that I've got as much of this color in here. This is looking pretty. As much of this colored part on as I want before I add that highlight area. I think I want to bring this down just a little bit further down and through here. And again, yours could be whatever color you want. So at this point, I'm just kind of going back and forth between my blue, yellow, and white to in various tonal values to get this this colored part of the eye to pop as much as I want it to. I think I want a little more maybe brown up towards here. So, oh, I just put a little burnt sienna on my brush. I didn't mean to do that. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the glare or the highlight to the eye. So I'm just going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white. You could even use like watered down white paint. So you could put white on your brush and then just dip it in your water, tap it on your paper towel or whatever towel you're using, and start it that way, and then just build it. If you have a big glob of white on your brush and you try it and add this information to the eyeball, you might end up overdoing the entire thing. So I want it to look like it's got the illusion of it being round, so I'm going to have these curved highlights in this way, and then they'll also curve in that direction to give it a second bit of information. So I've got white paint on my brush, watered down white paint, but that was a little bit too watered down for me, so I just added a bit more white on my brush like that, and then I'm going to bring it over in this direction as well. And I don't do a whole heck of a lot when it comes to the shiny part. You could certainly elevate yours more by adding more of a sparkle or whatever into it, which I might do, but right now I'm just kind of getting the information. So I'm doing a similar curve from one eye to the next, and then I'm going to do one going in this direction. And if you wanted there to be like a little bit of a fog or that see-through kind of area, I think I'm going to put a little something going on right in through here, maybe the same over here. So that way it almost gives you the appearance you're seeing through that illuminated part, and maybe you're seeing the eyeball behind it. And then I would just kind of keep fiddling with my edges around. Oh, I wanted to add a little bit of pink around those eyes. So I'm going to take white and red and make myself a pink color, like a nice rosy skin color. And I'm going to add this right along the edges of the eye as if this is a really nice skin color. And you can pull it into your little fur areas if you have. So you can add, by adding this, it's going to make it look more like skin as opposed to just the fur wrapped around the eye. So I'm just adding and making sure that I do a little bit on both eyes so they look like they connect. And once I do this, then I'm just gonna, you know, sit and fiddle. If I wanted more white fur around the exterior part of the eye, I can put a little bit in through here, making it look like we've got little eyelashes or, you know, something along that line. And you just kind of keep fiddling until you've got them as beautiful as you want. You can add these little extra pieces of fur all around them, making sure that everything just kind of connects and makes sense. And then once you've done that, we're going to use this same brush for the next step. So you can just kind of wash it, dry it, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna finish our cat, really. We're gonna finish the nose and the whiskers. So I'm gonna use my small brush. The colors I'm using are pink, brown, and white, maybe some rust too. But I'll call them out as I do them. So I'm just using that pre-mixed pink that I used for the eyes to put my nose in place. So my nose is going to go around these little curves that we had put in place initially. And you might have to reshape them a little bit as you're doing it. And this skin kind of portion that we're going to create here, in essence, kind of fades down into this center area. It's, you know, it's skin. So it can have little like lumps and bumps and stuff in it, but I just am kind of getting it, I'm pulling it into the neighboring area down in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself the shape of the top of the nose. So I'm just utilizing that pink, bringing it a little around the edge up here, you know, bringing it up a little bit higher than that nostril itself. And again, this one on the left-hand side, the face is a little bit turned, so they don't have to look exactly alike. I'm getting it to fade into this little center area that we deemed as that darkness in the center. And then I'm going to get it to just kind of fade into whatever I have for the fur up in through here. I'll add some dimension in a minute, but that's how I'm going to start that. Then I'm going to wash and dry my small brush while that's kind of drying. Oh, I think I want a little bit in the, maybe where the little, it would meet the little lip in through here. Just a little hint of it, just to give the illusion of the skin by that mouth in through there. And again, just kind of tapping it in, not doing much at all. Then I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put the little dots where I want my whiskers to come out in these areas in through here. I'm really just going to put oh, actually I need black and brown. My brown was not going to show up enough, so I have black and brown on my brush. and I'm really just going to do these kind of messy little polka dots of sorts in through this region of the face. They don't have to be super evident, just the illusion or hint of them is totally fine. And if you feel that you did too many and you're like, oh my God, these are huge, they don't make sense, you can always just pick up some of your lighter color, like your white or your brown, your tan color or white with brown, and just kind of dull them down a little bit. We just need to give the illusion that there is a couple of little dark spots from where our whiskers are going to come. I'm wiping my brush off on my paper towel. I want to put a little highlight now on that nose, or actually I'm going to wash it and dry it. I don't want to have too much black on my brush. So I'm washing and drying my brush, and I'm going to put a teeny tiny bit of white paint on my brush. I know that all I'm looking to do here is give it like a contour highlight. So I'm just adding a little tiny bit of white paint on my brush, and I'm gonna, this is where to me the nose would pop out the most. So I'm just giving it a little hue of a lighter tone in through here by just rubbing that white on it, and you can bring a little bit of that white down in through here, and the brighter you make it, the more you elevate it, the whiter you make it, the more it's going to look like it's popping out to us. I think I want it a little bit lower in through here to get it to have a little bit more volume to it, so it's not just a little tiny spot at the top of the nose, because I know their noses can be kind of you know, a little pudginess to them. So I'm going to put this extra bit in through here just to make sure that I've got that sticking out enough, making sure I bring this down in through here. And then what I would do in order to get it to blend in with its surroundings is I'm going to pick up a little bit of rust and maybe a touch of brown too. I got a little rust and a little brown on my brush. So I would utilize these colors to just make sure that it meets, or maybe that you can see the definition a little bit between the nose and the fur that is next to it. That also gives a little bit of length to that fur if you needed to, or down the center of the nose in through here if I needed to bring this back or curve it a little bit or give it any additional information. Maybe I want a little bit of the rust to be in this neighboring area here. If it feels like there's not enough definition, you can add a little bit more of that rusty tone to it. That's going to allow you to get a little bit extra depth in the skin itself. You don't have to add it to the whole thing, but just little pockets of it here and there will give you that extra dimension. And same thing with in the mouth. So if I want you to make sure you see that this is, you know, dips in, I could add a touch of black or rust or brown or just something that's a little bit deeper and darker and give you that tiny bit of the little mouth that just kind of pops in just a teeny tiny bit. You can even put a little bit up and through there, and you just kind of keep fiddling with it until you feel that it has enough volume on it. I think I want this to be a bit brighter in through here, and every time you brighten it a little bit more, or you add a little bit more information, it's going to look a little bit more real. So if you like the painterly style and you're like, you know what, I think it just captures the thought that I want right here, you don't need to bring it any further. But if you want to continue to elevate that realistic type of look to it, you just kind of keep adding more information and you'll accomplish that realistic look to it. And I'm just going to keep adding a little bit more here and there. I need my whiskers. Hold on. The whiskers are coming. The whiskers are coming. But just give me a second while I let my brush tell me it's finished. And then I'm going to add my whiskers. So my whiskers, you can add them with just white paint if you want to. Or you could add them with like white and brown, whatever you feel is going to accomplish the brightness that you want. But I'm going to use it with a little bit of water. So I just took a little bit of water from my cup, my dirty water, and I'm thinning out my paint a little bit. So this is going to give me a nice fluid, oops, now I've got rust on my brush. It's going to give me a nice fluid brush stroke. So when I go to do these whiskers, I can pull it pretty darn far. And you can, again, make yours as dominant, as bright as you want, or as subtle as you want. But I'm making sure that I have some good fluidity on my brush. And then I'm just going to kind of start, oh, see, now this is, my background is pretty darn light. So you're not going to be able to see white on white or this lightness. So I'm actually going to make a couple of these a little darker. So I'm going to use a little bit of brown too. So I said you could use white and brown. I'm going for a little bit of brown on some of these that are going to cross over into the light area. So something like this. I'm just kind of pulling these out. So you can see that, you know, sometimes you just have to make decisions on the fly. So I'm going to use a few with this darker tan type of color, and then I'll come back on top of them and do a little bit of white. So that way you're going to almost get the illusion of a shadow type of effect underneath these whiskers. So I'm going to just kind of add a few in through there. I know that I'll be able to get away with just white over on this right side. So now that I've done that, I can come in and I can take a little bit of white on my brush right next to or on top of that same whisker that I created the first time. And now because I have a little bit of a contrasting color next to it, you're going to be able to see it. So this is one of those things that if your background was as light as mine and you weren't able to see your whiskers as much as you wanted to, that's a quick, easy way to be able to see them. Is you just got to add some kind of contrast next to them. And I'm gonna, maybe I'll have one coming up, I don't know, we'll go in through here. And I like to just kind of flick mine, get them in different directions, get a couple coming out in front of here so you can see them coming out of these little holes, and they don't, of course, have to go in the same direction as mine. And then I'm going to go ahead, oh, maybe I'll have a couple of small ones over here too. That wasn't as small as I wanted. We'll wipe that one away. And that was because my brush wasn't moist enough, so it gave me a really firm looking line to it. So once I've got those ones, I'm going to move over to this right hand side, and I should be able to get away with just using the lighter color. And I can go ahead and flick some whiskers in through here, making sure that I've got some longer ones and some that come out in a different direction. And then once you've got as many whiskers on here as you want, and you have made your nose as cute as you want it to, and made any little changes or modifications that you feel are necessary, we are going to use this same small brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it. Of course, I'm going to keep adding to mine. Wash it and dry it, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing our little fish, except for the shark fin. So we're going to do the actual fish, and then we'll put the shark fin on in the next step. So I'm going to use my small brush. I'm using yellow, white, black, and maybe a little red too, maybe a little rust as well. So how I'm going to do this, I'm going to start with some black paint on my small brush. I'm going to give myself a tiny little mouth. So somewhere in through here, I'm just going to kind of give myself a little bit of a mouth. I'm going to come a little away from that, maybe up a bit, give myself an eye. I'm just painting this in black for the moment. I will put some detail on it in a minute or so, but right now, just going to give it a black layer. Then I'm going to put some shadow on the bottom of my fish. So just black paint is where I'm going. I'm going to put a little blackness or shadow underneath my little fish like this. I'm skipping my fins because they are going to have their own detail to them. So a little bit of blackness underneath here. And then my fins, I'm going to put a bit of a shadow on this back side. So a little bit of black, maybe a little bit down that fin, just a smudge. Put a tiny bit coming up in through here. This tells you how where that fin is coming out of the body, just a teeny bit in the flippers. Goes another, what is it? Is it a fin or a flipper? Maybe a tiny bit in the tail, not a lot. Maybe a teeny bit on the left side of this thing in through here. And then maybe just a little bit more up in through here, give them a touch more dimension. And then once I've got that on there, I am going to wash and dry my little brush, and I'm going to add the brightness to my fish. I'm going to have the top very, very bright. So I have yellow and white, and I want this to look like scales. So I'm just going to be polka dotting this color in through here, and this is going to be my brightest of my bright area is up in through the top area and through here. I've got a little bit coming towards the front area, just tapping it in on the top of his head, something like this. And I will add more information to it in a minute, but right now I'm just kind of getting the very bright areas on it, and I'm just kind of fading them out into the darker areas. Then I'm gonna, maybe his lips are gonna get a touch of brightness, or the front part of his little snout in through here. So I've just got yellow and white on my brush, and this is just going to give me that little bit of brightness on his front of his face. I'm going to put some around his eyes, so I'm just kind of tapping in this little bit of yellow and white, maybe at the top of his eyes, like he's got a little bit of an eyelid, and then maybe underneath the eye in through here, like there's a little bit of a highlighted part in through there. I'm going to add some of this into the fins, so just kind of streaking in right now the yellow and the white in through the fins, so they don't have a solid color. I'm just giving these little streaks of the light color. Yellow and white are still the colors that are on my brush. On this back fin, maybe this has got couple extra ones back in through here, and then I got a little bit up in through here. So now I've got my highlights and my shadows kind of designated where I want them to go. Now I just need to get everything to connect in through here. So I just wiped my brush off on my paper towel. I'm going to pick up a little bit of red and yellow, because I know that these two colors are going to make for some very vibrant scale effects on top of that rust. So I picked up red and yellow, and this is going to again give me some super vibrancy where it, you know, it looks like it's got a dimensional element to it because it's on top of that rust type of color. This is going to give me some great color to it. So red and yellow are the colors that I'm using right now to just tap in to the rest of the fish, and I'm overlapping this highlighted area a little bit, so that way it'll give it a good transition into the darker area. And then I'm going to streak in to the fins, the red and the yellow on my brush. So I got red and yellow, and I don't need to or want to color in all the rust color. This is just meant to be accents, and it's meant to give that extra bit of color to the fish. And once I put my final color on it, which is going to be adding the final little dimensional thoughts to it, it will all make sense. So now I'm going to wash and dry my little brush. I'm going to let this rest for a minute, go finish the eye. The eye, I'm going to use some yellow and maybe a touch of white. I suppose you could use rust too. I'm really just going to give a little crescent within this eye I'm going to leave a little pupil. I'm doing a little bit on the left and then coming up the right just a little bit. So not much on the eye. You could put, you know, a little bit more yellow or rust or whatever you want. If you want there to be a little twinkle in the eye, you can put a tiny bit of white paint and then maybe just give it a little tiny twinkle, but that's going to be your call. So I'm wiped my brush off on my paper towel, and now I'm using predominantly yellow to just kind of tap in on top of my red in through here. And I'm using a lot of paint with a small brush. And this is gonna, when it dries, it's going to have light spots and dark spots within it. So it's going to provide you with a natural kind of gradient of sorts within each one of these tiny little scales, because I'm not using white right now, I'm just using the yellow, and I know that it will, the thicker it is, the brighter it's going to be when it dries, or the more you'll see it. And the thinner it is, the more it's going to take on whatever other color it is intermingling with. So I'm kind of just playing with the information. I know that this is a see-through color, and it will provide me with the those changes as it dries. So I am using that to my advantage. And then once I've got all of my yellow dots on here, I'm going to do the same thing. Just pull a little bit in, a couple of little streaks in the fins, and then if I need to, I can come back with a little bit more white just to give myself that final punch of a bright highlight on the top. So I just wipe my brush off on my paper towel and just making sure that I've got my brightest of my bright area. And if I need to do any other little tweaks to it, I certainly would. Maybe I need a little light area back here, but you can certainly have fun with making any little adjustments. We are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your cute little fish on here, you've made any little adjustments that you want, you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting ourselves a shark fin on our goldfish. I'm using my small brush. I'm going to be using black and white paint, and how I'm going to do this is I'm first going to just pre-mix myself a little bit of a gray color, so just a little bit of white, a touch of black. We don't need much because this is a tiny shark fin. So whatever tone of black or gray you would like is totally fine. It will dry a little bit darker as it than it is when it's wet, so just kind of plan for that as you go along. So once I've got my color of gray that I want, I'm going to put it on my fish. So, oh, just make sure that your fish is dry too before you do this step, because we're going to be painting over it, so you'll want to make sure that body's dry. So I'm going to go maybe about 1.5 inches to 2 inches up. If this is the center of my fish, I'm a little to the left and maybe about 2.5 inches up. And I'm going to just make myself a little marker here, and I'm making myself a shark fin. So I don't know if there's any exact specific shape that it has to be in, but I'm just kind of making mine a triangle that is curved a little bit to the top left. It's going to be pointy at the top. It's going to get wider as it comes and meets the body. I'm just going to color it in with this gray color. Once I've got it colored fully in here, I'm bringing it just a little bit past the edge of my goldfish into the goldfish a little bit, as if it's kind of straddled on top of the back of the goldfish a little bit. So something like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little strap that's going to hold the shark fin on. So I'm going to do this like a little V. My strap is going to come down the belly in through here. So I'm going to have one here, and I'm not going all the way to the edge. I'm coming in just a little bit. One here, like that. And then when I go to do the one that's around the belly, you can curve it a little bit if you want to imply that your goldfish has some shape to it. So I'm just going to bring that down there. You can even bring it just past your little goldfish a little bit, so it looks like it's of the thicker variety. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe my brush off, or wash and dry my brush, pick up a little bit of black to add some shadow in through here. So I've got a shadow along the bottom of the fin as it meets my goldfish, and I'm just doing a little black line. You could certainly get more creative with your shadow if you wanted to. I'm going to do it on the left side of this piece, on the left side of this piece, and then on the left going down the body in through here. Oh, I need a little clasp of sorts. Let me just, I'm gonna wash my brush and put some gray back on it. I wanna have a little clasp in the middle here, so I'm gonna make a little area that's a little bit wider, like that. Yeah, that's gonna work. And then put that black back on my brush to give myself a little shadow underneath my clasp. Little shadow on the left, little shadow on the left here and underneath here, and maybe a little kind of hook of sorts. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to pick up white and I'm going to do a little highlight on my fin, on the front of my fin. I just picked up white, and just to give it a little bit of dimension, I'm adding this white along the edge, and then I'll just get it to blend in with my gray color. I just picked up some of my gray to get it to blend in. This is just going to make it look like it's got a little bit of shape to it. It doesn't, you know, necessarily have to, but if you want it to have a little bit of shape, you can add that highlight in through there. Going to pick up a tiny bit more white paint to give just a little hint of a highlight on these little straps. You can put one here, you can put one here, you can put one on this little clasp. If you wanted even more dimension to it, you could add gray plus a tiny bit of black on your brush and put a little bit of a shadow on this back side of the fin. So that was black with a little bit of gray on my brush, and I'm just getting it to blend into that mid-tone gray. And then you just kind of keep tweaking this as much as you want. I'm not going to really do a whole heck of a lot to mine, but that's about the gist of it for me. And then we are going to be using our large brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your medium brush or your small brush away wherever you'd like to. Take out your large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the outline for our fishbowl. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush, and the color that I'm using is the dark blue that we used originally for the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of that dark blue on my brush, and I'm going to make myself a couple of markers, but I'm going to be doing this step with my canvas turned to the side. But first I want to kind of give you a good idea of where these markers are. I have one at the top and one at the bottom at the same distance from the left-hand side. So they're over about a third of the way over my canvas. So if this is about halfway and this is about a quarter of the way, it's somewhere in between those two. So I've got just a little bit of a marker right in through here. You don't have to do much of a mark, just something that you have a goal in mind. Then I have one over about halfway up and down my canvas, about 2 inches in from the side. I'm just making myself a teeny tiny little marker so I have a place to go. And then at the bottom, I'm going to come in about the same distance as I did on the top. So somewhere about here. Just make yourself a little tiny marker. And then what I'm going to do is I'm turning my canvas this way. Because I'm right-handed, this is going to make it easy for me. I guess if you're left-handed, you could do the same thing, but you're going to be over on the other side of the canvas. It would work out the same way for you. So I have my blue on my brush, and I want it to be pretty darn fluid. I want to be able to get a nice long kind of brush stroke out of this. So I put a little bit of blue on my brush, but I'm also going to dip my brush in water and then tap it off on my paper towel. So I can always add more paint to my canvas, but this way this is going to give me a good kind of fluid type of motion. I in essence just want to give it a nice convincing arc, but it doesn't have to be perfect. So even if the top half can be different than the bottom half, and we're not even seeing the other side of the fish tank, so it doesn't have to meet or match any other side. So you can really start wherever you would like to. I'm going to start in through here, and I want the outside edge to be clean, and the inside edge is going to fade into my canvas. So I'll show you how I'm going to do this. I keep my eye on the prize, which is the other dot. So I'm just going to kind of lightly dust this, something like this. I'm meeting my dot. I'm watching where my other marker is, in through here, and I'm just going to kind of bring it down into that marker, in through there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep rubbing my brush so I have a nice almost fade from the outside into this area in through here. You can add more paint. I'm adding just a little bit more paint so it's a little bit more solid on the exterior line. I know that mine is going to get darker as it dries, so I'm okay. I want it to be nice and dark, and I'm just kind of cleaning up my edge a little bit here before I work really hard at getting that gradient to happen the way that I want. So now that I've got it on there, I can just start manipulating that paint as it's drying to get it to blend into this neighboring area. I will add a little bit of water to my brush in a minute. I'm not using a firm brush stroke. I'm kind of just letting the paint intermingle with the canvas without pushing too hard. If I push too hard, what's going to happen is I will end up pulling that paint off the canvas. I just dipped my brush in water and wiped it off on the side of my palette. The water is going to help me to kind of thin out some of the areas that might be a little bit too thick looking for you. It doesn't have to, again, be a perfect blend, but if you can get it to blend in a little bit to make sure that it has that translucency to it, that's great. And if it doesn't end up perfect, that's okay, because we're going to be adding all of these little reflections, which you can strategically place to hide an imperfect area on this gradient. So I'm going to just kind of keep fiddling with it, and then once I feel that I've got it as good as I want it, then what I'll do is I'm going to be switching brushes. I'm getting a little bit to come down towards this bottom too, to make it look like we've got a little bit of a concave aspect to the bottom of the fish tank. And then I will be putting this brush away, and you can see I'm just kind of working it as it's drying, and that helps me to kind of get some of these streaky areas to work their way out. You get to see the whole process here as I'm fiddling with it, because I don't want to turn it yet. And then we're going to use our medium brush for the next step, so you can just get that out and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing. We're going to do the reflections in the fishbowl. We're going to do little bubbles coming up out of the fish and any other little details I think of along the way. So I'm using my medium brush. You could certainly use your medium and or your small brush, whatever works for you. I'm going to be using my navy blue color, white, black, yellow, well, some colors from my cat and my goldfish for the reflection. So I'll call them out as I use them. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to put my water line on the top. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. I'm using my navy blue color. This does not have to be a super clean, make it perfect. You just want it, of a level type of look to it. So how I'm going to make sure that it's level is I'm going to decide how far down I want that water line to go. And for me, I want it to be a little bit above my cat's head. Like, my cat is obviously not in the fish tank, so I want us to like he's down and really looking at it. So I've got mine a little bit higher than here. So I'm coming over to the left-hand side. I'm going to make myself a little bit of a mark, how high or how low I want it to go. Then I can use my brush or any other measuring tool to see where I made that marker. And I'm going to come over to the other side and make myself a marker at about the same height. Then when I go to connect these, I'm going to be connecting them with a very long oval. So in order to make sure that it's kind of like an oval way, what I'll do is on each side of it, I'm just going to start a very, almost like a long V type of look to it. This actually the right side you don't have to do that because the right side, the end of it is off the camera. So I'm just going to kind of give myself just a little narrow area, and then I'm just going to connect my dots. Again, I don't need it to be 100% perfectly executed, and it can have a little bit of a curve to it, but right now I'm just going to kind of give myself a kind of a light line going across. It goes right across my cat's head because the cat is behind. You can use a little bit of water on your brush to give yourself more fluidity in your brush stroke, and I think I need this to go up just a little bit more in through the middle. I don't want it to dip down too much. And then once I've got that on there, I'm going to do a little bit in through here. So once I've got my idea of where I want that water line to be, I don't need to color it in 100%. What I really just want to do is give the illusion of the colors that are around are being reflected in that. So I just used my blue paint. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black paint to give myself a couple of little darker areas throughout that water, maybe there, maybe in through here a little bit, just to again give a little bit of dimension to it, just making sure I've got this corner over here looking like a little bit of an oval. And then I think I'm going to wash my brush while I'm just hitting this top area first. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white paint to give myself a couple of little ripples in that top water area. And you can really build this whatever way is visually appealing to you. If this is too wet up top and you're having difficulty working with it, then you just go down below and do that portion of your reflection while you're waiting for this one to dry, and then you just kind of keep adding those colors in there. I'll bring some colors from the rest of the painting in a second, but I want to kind of hit this side over here. So I'm going to do a couple of main areas that are going to have this navy blue color in it, and I'm going to keep all of my reflections on this side in a curve that is similar to the glass itself. So I'm going to have one of them coming up in through here, and these can really be of any shape or anything that you want, because they're in essence just reflecting something that is off in the distance, you know, from somewhere else in this, you know, in the room or whatever this area that the cat is in. This is just reflecting something. I'm going to bring this one maybe in front of the fin a little bit, and I'm going to give it more of like a geometrical type of shape, but I'm going to give this, maybe I'll bring this over here just a little bit more like this, and you can really just play with these reflections all you want, because in glass it can reflect anything that's around it. So I'm going to give another one down below here. This one's going to be pretty high, and it's going to be with this same navy blue color. And again, I'm going to do a bunch of kind of geometric type of shapes so they can, you know, I'm not quite sure what they're reflecting, but I'm having them reflect in this similar color, so you can, you know, use your imagination as much as you want. In a minute, I'm going to start incorporating the colors from inside the fish tank, and they'll be reflecting along the edges. But right now I'm just kind of giving myself some darker areas, some, you know, to add a bit of, you know, nice drama in my reflection. Maybe I think I'm gonna pick up some black paint and do a really maybe long one coming over on this side in through here. Maybe I'm gonna throw caution to the wind over here and start up here, following kind of the contour of my bowl. Who knows what this is reflecting? Maybe I'll bring it a little bit closer over in through here. And again, just have fun with this. This is one of those paintings that you get to kind of explore the, you know, the exercise of doing reflections. I have a really shaky hand, so I'm right now resting my palm on my canvas to help get some of these lines a little bit straighter. You can always add a touch of water to your brush. That's going to give you some nice clean lines as well, but trying to brace yourself, that's going to allow you to have a kind of a fluid type of rhythm to your own hand. So you can certainly, again, play with those aspects as well. I think I'm going to add, now that I have the black on my brush, I'm going to add a couple of little just black markings over here on the left hand side, just to, you know, insinuate that maybe there's something else over there that is dark and giving us some extra depth in our reflection. And then all I'm going to do at this point, I do want to have some lighter areas, so I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I think I'm going to put some bubbles coming up my fish in a minute, but over on this left hand side, I'm going to use my my dark blue with a little bit of white on my brush to give myself a little bit of a lighter reflective area in through here. Maybe this just kind of streaks down a little bit. Now I'm just picking up some white to give myself another kind of little geometric shape within a shape. So again, I'm just having fun with adding these little bits. Maybe I've got some little white little reflections up in through here. These can be of anything, just little bits and pieces here and there. Who knows what they're reflecting? I think I want some more up in through here, the edge of my water in through here. So that gives, you know, just some more identity to the top of my water. Brings the eye right there if you needed to. And then I'm just wiping my brush off on my paper towel. I'm picking up some of my cat and goldfish colors. So I just picked up some rust and yellow. I'm going to get a little bit of that reflected over here on the side of my bowl, and maybe a touch down in through here. And you don't need to do the whole thing, you know, just adding little glimpses here and there, maybe a little bit up in the water up in through here, like this is reflecting a bit of either the cat or the goldfish, or just something up in the top there. Maybe pick up some of that yellow alone just to give me those little bits of additional colors in through here. Maybe this is really, you know, reflecting this goldfish that's sitting right next to it. Maybe we've got a bit more down in through here. The trick is just don't be super systematic when it comes to adding these reflections in the water. The more carefree it kind of is, I mean, it's got to make sense. You know, you don't want the whole thing to just have yellow in it. If you're going to do yellow, you want to do some of the red or some of the rust or something to carry those colors in there, so it makes sense that it is reflecting what's in the bowl. But you don't necessarily have to go, you know, it doesn't have to be super systematic, I guess. And then I'm going to add some bubbles coming out my fish. So I'm going blue, my dark navy blue with some white on my brush. And I'm not going to blend these in too much. I'm using two colors on my brush at the same time to just show that he's got some effervescent stuff happening. Maybe he's got some little bubbles coming up and through here, and they can be different shapes and sizes. You can have, you know, some bigger ones and some smaller ones. I think I'm going to put more white on my brush so you can kind of see the little dimensional aspect of it. So you can play with those, make them look really nice and fun and have as much energy to them as you want. You could even put some little marks behind the fish in through here to make it look like he's making little waves as he's swimming around his tank. So you could certainly have some fun with that as well. And then we have one little tiny step left to go, and it's going to be with the small brush. So once you've got your fish on here and you've got all your reflections and all your good stuff finished, you can put this medium brush away. We're going to use the small brush for the next step, so you can just get ready. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going bottom left on this one with my small brush and black paint. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like for your identifying mark to be. That is your decision to make. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a very whimsical image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.